Lord Kazai knelt down in his room in the Undead Castle. He wasn't wearing his armor, but he still had his katana, Red Nefed, around his waist. His eyes were closed as he reflected on recent conversations, the legacy of Fenrir, and his ongoing rivalry with King Ingvar and the Obsidian army. A few days prior, Lord Kazai and King Ingvar recruited their final members to their armies. Vorpal, which many Fenins believed would be a neutral territory in the war, was where the recruits came from. A rare situation where the two rulers agreed they both needed more able bodies for the war, and the mayor there allowed them to recruit. It was assumed that King Ingvar would treat his new recruits much more harshly than Lord Kazai would treat his, but that didn't mean that anyone recruited to Onyx was going to have an easy training regiment. Before becoming the Lord of Onyx, Kazai had undergone some of the most rigorous training imaginable for a soldier living on Fenrir. A style of tutoring that he would then pass on to those that he trained, and now those who were recruited to fight in this war. Lord Kazai believed in executing attacks to perfection, but he also believed that training one's mind was equally as important. Lord Kazai put together a group of warriors known as Kazai's Chosen for the war, and his most trusted member among them was a woman named Shade. While meditating, Kazai recalled a time when he was training Shade. They both sat exactly where Lord Kazai was sitting now, meditating just like this.
I understand that everyone has their own methods of teaching, but I think I need more physical training than mental. I'm nowhere near the shape I need to be in, but I am focused.
They sat in silence for a moment before Kazai finally spoke.
Just by saying that you prove otherwise. If you are as focused as you say, then you would stick to the task at hand. A sharp mind is just as important as a sharp blade. If you can find the time to practice a technique thousands of times, then you can take a few minutes to reflect upon the day.
At first, Lord Kazai didn't believe he got through to Shade, but she never complained about Kazai's methods again, and he could see the improvement in her abilities shortly after. This level of discipline was exactly what Kazai felt would separate them from the Obsidian army. He then recalled a conversation he had with the orc, Razmig, a recent addition to the Onyx army. Razmig was an orc with many years of experience and wisdom. While Shade and Seldric focused on training the new recruits, Razmig helped Lord Kazai strategize the first plans Onyx would set in motion to start the war. Razmig's insight was important to Kazai. Kazai also knew Razmig the least of his chosen. This would be a good chance for them to learn to understand and trust one another. Lord Kazai was a legendary warrior known mostly for his battle with Ingvar on top of the magical Mount Shair. However, Razmig was a legend in his own right, having slayed the monstrous Embarrack, a giant wolf rumored to have been born from one of the wolf god Enror's claws. This meeting between two legends would mark the first time Lord Kazai revealed some of his secrets to one of his chosen. Razmig stood beside a war table set up in one of the rooms inside Undead Castle.
This man named Pyros you speak of, he is a member of Onyx that we have behind enemy lines.
A spy who has been with them since the start of recruitment.
So according to his reports, we should expect the unexpected from Ingvar. He doesn't just push through our defenses, he plans to attack the outer edges of Onyx and Obsidian. This information means the middle of the battlefield will be open to start the war. We can use that to our advantage.
Kazai pointed to an area on the map just beyond Midport.
This is the location of one of Obsidian's closest outposts. If Ingvar assumes we will be on the defensive and is putting his focus toward Triton and Vorpal, then it would only take a small group of our knights to seize control of this outpost and immediately put pressure on Obsidian.
Razmig stared at the map and thought. Lord Kazai had already placed pieces on both Triton and Vorpal, as well as the outpost he just mentioned.
What about Triton and Vorpal, then? We can't just surrender those two locations in favor of this one outpost.
Seldric will go south to Vorpal. I already have knights stationed just outside Triton, waiting for Obsidian's arrival, none of which is as important as our true mission. You see, all of this is simply a diversion so that we can send a small group even deeper into Obsidian's territory.
Deeper in? For what purpose?
To handle a threat that may be even greater than Ingvar. There is a woman he recruited, a tailor from some town in Obsidian I never even heard of. Pyros believe this woman has sway over Ingvar, and he is following many of her suggestions. I find it hard to believe that a simple tailor could conjure up strategies akin to my own, but I have also been one to never underestimate my opponents.
She steadies the wild swings of the God King. She points the barbarians in directions that make more sense than going headfirst into us.
Kazai placed his hand on the handle of Red Nefet.
She needs to be taken out of the equation.
Lord Kazai could not help but think about what that meant. If Onyx had an equivalent to the tailor, then Ingvar would not hesitate to remove them by any means necessary. But Lord Kazai was determined to be different from the brutes that stand across from Midport. The intent should be to capture the tailor, but this was war now. There would not yet be blood on the tailor's hands, but her involvement in Ingvar's campaign could not go unpunished. Kazai's thoughts continued to drift. He tried to focus on the reason he was willing to fight this war in the first place. Many believed it was because he needed to settle his rivalry with Ingvar, but the truth of the matter was that Ingvar was so much more than just his sworn enemy. In Kazai's eyes, he was a symbol. Ingvar stood for the type of future that Kazai could not let happen on Fenrir. Ingvar denounced the gods and goddesses of old, and disrespected the beliefs of the Fenins. He stepped on the foundation of Fenrir's history. Despite being one like Kazai and Razmig, Ingvar spat in the face of its legends. They called those most loyal to Kazai his chosen, but the people of Fenrir had chosen him. If he could not stop this enemy hell-bent on destroying everything Fenrir had built up to this moment in time, then who would? His thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of one of his knights. "Excuse the interruption, my lord. I know we're not to disturb your meditation, but I bring news of the war." Kazai finally opened his eyes and stood up.
What is it?
Razmig, Sade, and the others are carrying out your plans in Obsidian. I was told to inform you that the fighting has begun at Vorpal and Triton.
Good. Ready my horse. I will make for the fields just outside of Undon.
You're leaving the castle?
My chosen are behind enemy lines. If these fights do not go our way at Triton and Vorpal, then Red Nefed and I are Onyx's greatest chance at surviving Obsidian's assault until they return.
The knight nodded and left the room. Lord Kazai turned to face where his armor was on display. He placed one hand on the chestplate of his armor, and the other gripped the handle of Red Nefed. Once again, he closed his eyes.
The mermaid, the witch, the elf, and the wolf face extinction. But Fenrir has chosen me as its champion. In the wake of inevitable bloodshed, I shall help usher in a new world, no longer tarnished by those unworthy of its soil.